Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Baking Boards or Tweak the Recipe for Agile Development. My name is Valerie Andrianova, and I'm YouTrack Product Marketing Manager, and I'm also working for other team tools at JetBrains as a Product Marketing Manager. Today, I want to talk about the way we do practice Agile for different teams here at JetBrains, and what are the main principles and the main practices that we use that's working for us and working for different cases. If you're practicing any kind of Agile methodology and think that the process might not be working for you perfectly, or you're not agile enough, hope that this session will help you to figure out or try something new or to fulfill your process, or in some cases, it might help you to understand that you are doing perfectly fine and everything is working for you, and you just need to tune maybe some really small things. Before we start with like real life examples of various teams here at JetBrains that are using various ways and various principles of Agile, and we'll show you how we use Agile boards. I want to talk a little bit about like general principles and general teams that we have. So probably you all know that at JetBrains we do tools, we develop tools for professional developers and teams. So we have a bunch of different IDEs for different technologies like IntelliJ, PHP Storm, ReSharper, and so on. And we also have team tools that help your whole team to collaborate better, to organize their process, to track issues, to manage your projects, and so on. But of course, behind our tools, there are real people and real teams, and not only product teams. Of course, we have like a design team, we have web team, and all other various operation teams that help us to create and produce our products. So we'll be talking not only about product teams, but all other teams as well. And one more thing before we go to the real examples, I want to share one story with you. I want to introduce you to Boris Gloger. He's the author of several Agile books, and he's the founder of his own consulting agency in Germany, and he's doing Agile consulting for different companies, like smaller companies and huge enterprises, and so on. We met him at the biggest Agile conference several years ago. At that time, we just announced the first version of our Agile board, and we were really keen on getting feedback from Agile community leaders. We expected something like, okay, this is a real Scrum, and this is something that is done right. And this is not a real Scrum. It should be done in different way, and so on and so forth. The same thing about Kanban and things like that. But when we met Boris and started to ask him to give us feedback, in return, he started to ask us about how we work at JetBrains and how like generally the things are organized. At that time, we thought that we don't really have like any established processes. Every team is different, and there was something like organized anarchy, at least as we thought about that. So we said that like, okay, how it works. The developer has an idea, then he starts to prototype it, and then he or she shares it with the team. The team gives the feedback, and at that point, the feature is fine-tuned and then will be added to the release, or might never get to the release or to the real product. So something like that. And we talked for several hours, describing like how different teams at the JetBrains work. And after that, Boris said one interesting idea. He said that JetBrains is one of the most agile companies he has ever seen. But the thing is that we don't have a clue about it. And at this point, I'm saying that not because I want you to believe that JetBrains is an agile company. That changed the way we started to think about agile in general as a methodology and as a set of principles, and that gave us a completely different view on our agile boards and on our support of agile principles. And after several years, we completely reworked it. And now the main principle that we are using to support any process is that the most valuable thing is like your process, and tool should be made to fit into your process and not the other way around. And now I'm going to show you the examples of how we are using the boards and how we tune them to fit into like various processes according to the goals that every team has. The first example is YouTrack team. I want to start from this team because this is my team, and it's like easier to explore the goals and results for me. So YouTrack team is about 25 people. That's including everyone. I mean, developers, QA engineers, support engineers, marketing manager, technical writers, and so on. So that's like that's small startup that has everything that we need inside. This is how we work. So we have 25 people, and we practice kind of Scrum with our own add-ons. I will tell you what I mean. But before I show you our boards and tell you how we work, I want to share our goals behind that. About a year ago, we decided to move to continuous delivery. And that required some changes in our process, of course. So we wanted to speed up our development process. Yeah, we need it because we wanted to release like more regularly, and we wanted to get feedback on the very first phase of the development. So whenever we have something to show to our users, to share and to get a feedback, we're just releasing it first as an experimental feature, and then when we get the feedback and we fine-tune everything, we just release it as a regular feature. At that point, we also needed to improve the code quality. It doesn't mean that our developers have written a bad quality code. It's just about the changes in our testing phase. So with continuous delivery, of course, we had less time for testing, and at that point, we wanted to cover as much code as possible with automated tests and to optimize our testing phase as good as possible. And of course, we wanted to involve all team members in all the activities because historically we don't have any documentation, and everyone is welcome to participate in like feature design, in requirements, in sharing use cases for that, and so on and so forth. And this is how we implement our process and support our goals in the real life. So we're following like a classical 2 weeks sprints, and this is our board. I'm going to tell you more about some specific things that we have. Yeah, of course, we have like swim lanes, and we have tasks inside each swim lane. But at some point, we decided that we want to add like a special card for design and testing review because it's really handy when you see the card for that purposes, and you see whether you got the feedback from your designer or testing team and everything is finished or it's in progress. And this way we don't forget to, for example, ask designer for this review. One more small rule that we have is that it's just something that we agreed about. So if a task takes more than 3 days, we split it. This is how it works. On the daily stand-up, when someone reports about the same task that they are working on for the third time, our Scrum Master just says that, okay, after the stand-up, please split the task. Why it happens? Because at the planning phase, when we discuss and describe the user story, sometimes it happens that the tasks needs like additional investigation, or during the process of implementation, some additional things come. And at this point, we can decide whether we can fit them into this sprint, or and just split the task and get the additional task, or we can just move it to the next sprint, which is absolutely fine, and we are okay with that. Also, just a couple of words why this is happening. We are following no estimate concept. What it means is that we are tracking just the number of user stories completed during the sprint, and our burn down is created based on the number of user stories. So we don't really care about the number of tasks that each user story requires to be implemented. So that's why we can split the tasks, and we can the number of tasks for each swim lane is flexible, and we don't really count them. But just advice from our side, before switching to this no estimate concept, we had about a year of experience of estimating user stories and estimating tasks. And after having this experience, I think we are qualified enough to create the user story and user stories and to feed them into the sprint, just because we have this feeling of estimation already. And the whole team shares like the same vision of how we do things, and how we work with each user story, and how we create them, and how we do like demos for them. So that helps us a lot, and this no estimate concept works for us. But if you want to try it, please start with just estimating things, and then you will be ready to switch to no estimate. At some point also, we decided that we want to add a swim lane for technical support tasks that requires like urgent attention from developers. Why this is happening? We have just one level of support. We have 2 or 3 support engineers, and they handle all the incoming requests from our customers. But sometimes these problems requires developers investigation before we can say that, okay, this is a bug and we will fix it immediately, or this is just something normal that can wait for some times, and the fix will be included into the next release or next bug fix. So it all depends. Whenever support engineers feels that the problem is serious and they want to attract developers' attention, they just added this problem to the board and to this swim lane. It's always on the top. So during the day, someone from the team will take a look for sure and will handle this problem. And it works pretty well for us, because developers sometimes they keep forgetting about these support requests when they're working on some feature or fixing some bugs. And adding these tasks on the board just attracts more attention from their side. We have a dedicated project for backlog. Why we're doing that? Because in general, like our YouTrack is public, and all the like projects are visible to everyone, and all our customers are welcome to come there to serve the issues and to create their own feature requests or bugs. And as a result, of course, we have lots of them there. So in our YouTrack project, in our public project, we have about 50,000 issues right now, and it's pretty hard to process and to create like user stories from this feature requests and customer requests when you have so many of them. So we decided that we'll just create a separate project for our backlog, and we'll link our user stories with the feature requests from these public projects. So after the year of working and implementing this this Scrum-like process in our team, we got the following results. So we did 4 major releases during this year, and just to compare, before that, our server tools used to have like 1 major release during the year, maybe 1 or 2 like minor releases, and of course a number of bug fixes. So with this continuous delivery, we've changed that, and next year we are aiming for 6 releases, so we'll see how it goes. Also, I've checked our like burn downs for about like 20 sprints, and I've created the burn down, like the general burn down for all the user stories that we took during this year and that were included into like one of the sprints. And it turned out that we are completing about 93% of user stories that we are taking, which is a good result, I think. Also, in terms of like code quality and automated tests that we covered our code with more this year, we've got 50% fewer bugs reported compared to the previous year. And of course, every member of the team is involved in planning, into retrospective, stand-ups and all the discussions. And I just forgot to mention that one of the most beautiful activities that we have in YouTrack team is our demos. At the end of each sprint, we have featured demos, and we do show to the whole team and to the people who are interested. Sometimes we have like guests from other teams. We show every swim lane, and we show like something like really working that can be demonstrated and can be discussed with the team. And that's motivate us a lot, I would say. So before we go to the next example, do we have any questions that we want to answer?
Yeah, we do have one question. How do you track iteration commitments versus support work that show up in the middle of the sprint? So how do we decide?
Okay, as far as understood, that that's about adding this support tickets to our board, right?
In the middle of the sprint.
We do try to like limit the number of this support requests, and we do add only like really important ones. Actually, we have like 2 swim lanes for support requests. I just wanted to tell you about the top one, but we also have like the bottom one for those requests that can, you know, wait for a while, that are not urgent. So we can, you know, mix and match. We can look at the problem, and if it's not really urgent, we just can move it to the bottom of the sprint or to the board. But normally, we just handle them. I mean, during the day when we add them, we just get someone to look at the problem, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the problem will be fixed just right away, but it just requires some investigation in order to understand what to do next with that. So yeah, we do combine it with a task that we are planning for the sprint, and it works well for us. So it doesn't take that much time. Is there anything else?
How do we manage documentation? Does JetBrains have a tool to link tickets? Like what tool? Do you mean what tool do we use for the tickets?
I'm going to be telling about like one of the documentation team. It will be just the next example. But according to the tool, yes, we do use our own tool for documentation. I mean, for writing the documentation. And Okay, so yeah, we answered the question. And about like how we do that and about like the process, I'm going to be telling just right now. So I want to introduce you YouTrack and Hub documentation team. We have two technical writers there for these two products, and what their responsibilities, of course, they are creating all the documentation for both products, but it's not it. They are also doing the wording review for all the texts that are shown in the product UI, and they also helping us with creating a lot of learning materials like videos, screencasts, tutorials, and so on and so forth. So these guys are pretty busy. What are their goals? Before like we start to implementing the process for them, we just start to check like what the goals they want to achieve. So again, with this product continuous delivery, we had to feed our documentation into this continuous process. What does it mean? It means that for every product, like for Hub and for YouTrack, we had like 4 major releases this year, and we also had some minor bug fixes that sometimes requires the updates in the documentation. So the goal for the documentation team is to get all the documentation ready before the release. The other goal is that these guys, they need to collaborate with the product team, and they wanted to visualize the scope of their tasks for the product release. And here is what they got. So this is the documentation, how they call it, like a Scrum board. Their sprints corresponds to the current product version, and they are not time limited. So what does it mean? We're preparing for 2017.2, and they need to prepare documentation for YouTrack and Hub. And this is what they just add to this board. Yeah, they have separate swim lanes for each product, like YouTrack documentation, as already said, and Hub documentation. And sometimes they do have other epics, for example, like documentation restructuring or adding some huge parts of the documentation or changing something big. So that's the things that are added as a swim lanes. Of course, their life cycle of their tasks is different comparing to the product team. So they have their own set of columns. For example, they have a separate state in review, like when documentation goes through the review, and the final state is published. So when the documentation is published, the appropriate task is completed. Yeah, as I already mentioned about this in review state, since we don't have any like technical documentation at all, like in JetBrains, in YouTrack, and in all other teams, so what we do, all the documentation that is created by our technical writers go through the review of a developer or support engineer or product marketing manager, whoever is involved into this feature or this update and like knows the details, just review the documentation. And this way we are sharing our knowledge, and we make sure that everything is working as designed from one side, and everything is documented correctly from the other side. So after following this process for a year again, I've talked to the documentation team about their results. So just wanted to share like what their feelings about that and what are the real results are like as we see it as a product team. So all the documentation for every version for both products is delivered on time. So during these 8 releases, we never waited for documentation. It was always there in time. And the second thing is that our technical writers really manage simultaneously now the efforts for the minor updates and for the major releases, and they manage it like pretty successfully. Another thing which is really important, that their process is clear for the whole team. So every developer or QA engineer can just open their board and to see like what is documented already, and where is like my feature in their queue for documentation is standing at the moment. And maybe sometimes like we can advise to move something or to change something, and that's absolutely fine. And the last thing, but not the least, of course, that their backlog of unresolved issues is greatly reduced. That means that they're not only creating documentation and covering all the new features, but they have implemented a lot of things that were, planning for this year, or just were just sitting in the backlog for a while, and they didn't have time to do this. So this year they finally could manage to complete this. Is there any questions about the documentation team?
Yeah, how do you indicate whether a task can be pulled to in review from the in progress state? I think it's vice versa there.
Okay, so how they actually work. So they create a task for documentation, for example, of a new feature. When a technical writer starts to work on it, they just move it to in progress state, and when it's ready and it's ready for the review, so they just pull it to in review state. And then if after the review it requires some updates, the task can be pulled again to in progress state. And so when everything is reviewed, and all the comments and everything is done, and everything is updated accordingly, so they just move it to the ready state, to the ready column. When it's published, it's just moves to the published column and just closes. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now I want to show you the personal boards and the process of personal task management. I want to introduce you to Andrei Chiptsov. Andrei is a product marketing manager for IntelliJ IDEA, and this is his goals for managing his own tasks. So what Andrei needs in his work? Of course, he needs to collaborate with various teams. That means that, of course, he's the part of the product team of the IntelliJ IDEA team, but he's also the part of marketing team, and he needs to communicate with internet marketing, like email marketing team, web team, designers, technical writers, evangelist team, and so on and so forth. He needs to track various marketing activities for his product. So it happens a lot that we do create tasks for various teams, and we have like a lot of activities going like in parallel and at the same time, and we need to track all these activities somehow in one place, just not to get lost. Andrei needs to manage his personal tasks, meaning the tasks that he's working on himself. And the last but not the least thing is that we have like PMMs for every product team, and every PMM is a part of this product team. But sometimes it's really good to like share knowledge and experience. And for example, I want to know like what Andrei is doing for IntelliJ IDEA marketing, maybe get some new ideas and use it for my product, and vice versa. So I want to have a place where I can go and check all the activities that are going on right now for IntelliJ IDEA. And finally, this is Andrei's personal board. This is a really interesting board. I cannot say like what it is, Scrum, Kanban. It's just homemade process. So Andre has about 20 different projects, and tasks from all these projects are added to his board. He has no sprints, so it's just the continuous flow. And he says that he adds to the board only those tasks that are important to him. And while they are on the board, it means that the work is still going on. He has no backlog. Again, he follows the idea that everything that's important for him is just on the board. Whenever he comes up with the idea and he knows that he's going to work on it, or he's going to create the task for some other team, he just adds it to the board. The most interesting thing here is that this board doesn't have any columns. So that's just a single column. And Andrew says that he doesn't care how the task is moving according to its changing its states. So whenever it's not ready, it's still on the board. And okay, when it's ready, it's just removed from the board. And he doesn't care anymore about this task. Swim lanes. Swim lanes combine tasks from different projects. So as we can see here, we have like a marketing swim lane, and this swim lane includes the tasks that Andre is working on himself. Then we have like a documentation swim lane, and under this swim lane, Andre gets tasks that different technical writers are working on, and these are the tasks that are important for him and for his marketing activities. And then he has a swim lane containing the tasks from like IntelliJ IDEA project itself. So that's some features or some improvements or some fixes that are interesting to Andre. Yeah, as I already said, when the task is completed, it's just removed from the board, and that's it. Results. I've talked to Andre after almost a year of using this personal board and following this process, and he says that it's easier for him to track the high priority tasks. Of course, he has even more tasks that are added to this board, but what's important is there, and he's keeping an eye on everything that in progress right now, and he gets a bird's eye view of the work in progress. It's convenient to manage tasks in multiple projects. As I already said, Andre is working with about 20 projects, and it's good to have a single place to check everything and to see what's going on. And he also says that he spends less time searching for important issues. So if it's important, it's just on the board, and it's really easy to find it. Do we have any questions about this personal? Okay, so yeah, we'll just move on.
Hold on. All right, so if someone would leave the team, how does that handoff look like? If everyone is in the team and aware everything is in their head from what you said, what are new employees reviewing?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. When we have someone new to the team, of course it requires some time to get all the things and all the details, but what we do is just the practice. So of course, depending on the role of a new person, they just start trying and doing some things, and they are involved immediately in all the activities. And we've got a lot of people who are ready to share their knowledge in different parts of the product. We have developers who are helping, for example, support engineers to start. Also, we have developers that are helping technical writers or marketing managers, and so on and so forth. So, like we share the responsibilities for welcome and sharing knowledge process, and when everyone is involved in that, and no one is afraid to ask questions, it works okay. So I would say that probably takes about a month to, you know, get involved in all the activities, and like we are okay with that. So yeah, no more questions. Okay, let's go ahead. This is our design team, and by this design team, I mean not the product designers. We have like usability designers for every product, and they are the parts of the product team. And this design team is like more for marketing activities. So they are in charge of our online materials, of our offline materials, like the booths at the conference, t-shirts, leaflets, of course, our online campaigns like banners, like landing pages, videos, and all the other stuff. When they came to us and asked to help them to establish the process, we again asked for about their goals. So what are the goals of the design team in JetBrains? They need to collaborate with all the product teams. And right now we have about 20 different products, and each product has its own product marketing manager, which comes to designers and constantly asks for something like, I need banners, I need booth design, I need leaflet, I need landing page, I need t-shirt, and so on and so forth. So they need to keep the load balance between the designers. There are about 10 people in their team right now, and we used to have the problem of like favorite designer. So every PMM had its own favorite designer, and we just used to come to them personally and ask to do things, and there were like completely no way to understand like who is loaded how and who needs help and who can just jump and, you know, do something. They also needed a way to keep track of the incoming tasks. Of course, they don't have a backlog, and they just need to do, you know, everything that we are asking for, and they need to track it constantly. So like every day, new tasks come, and that they should be prioritized and assigned to the designer. And the only way to actually prioritize the tasks for them is to use the due date. So that's their goals. And now I'm going to show you how we managed to set up the process for them. So this is the design team board. And again, that's the mixture of some Scrum practices and some just homemade add-ons. They have seasonal sprints. It's like the in fashion industry, but mostly it's about the lengths of the tasks that they normally working on. So sometimes it's like it's pretty fast, for example, to create banners, but sometimes they are preparing everything for like a huge campaign, and it may take like several months to finish. So that's why we thought that, like, you know, 3 months is okay, and their board would not get too overloaded. They have separate swim lanes for each designer. So you see that every designer has a line of the task that they are going to work on, and you can see, you can just come there and see how their how the work is load balanced between different members of their team. Yeah, as I already mentioned, they don't have a backlog because it doesn't really make sense for them, because they just need to satisfy the needs of every product, and they cannot say that, oh, that's something that is not important and we, you know, won't do anything about that. Of course, they have a project which we call design and artwork, and this is a dedicated project for all the design tasks. I'm emphasizing that because it's important that they asked everyone to use just one project and to report all the tasks just there, so it will be easier to manage. The way they work is that new tasks are automatically added to their board, and at the top at the very top of the board, they have the what is called like uncategorized cards swim lane, and all the new tasks got there. And then from this top swim lane uncategorized cards, the tasks are assigned to a specific team member, to a specific designer. And we created specific workflows for this, for the design team, which allows to assign the tasks only by team leads. And it works, yeah, pretty well for them, because keeping the load balance is important, and this way, like, you know, it's managed by team leads. So yeah, after again about a year of working and using you know, this process, I've talked to the team and to their team leads, and what they are saying is that of course, managing the load balance between designers is greatly improved because it's visible, and just looking at the board, you can say like who's loaded more and who's loaded less, and yeah, it's very easy. Again, tracking incoming tasks become much easier because it's visible, and all the incoming tasks are just shown at one place, and that helps a lot. And from our side, I mean, from the customer side, like product marketing manager, the process is now clear. So I can come to their board and see where is my task, who's going to be working on that, and where is it stands according to the queue. And sometimes I can just come and talk to the designer and ask to move things if it's important, and it worked well for us. So do we have any questions about this process? Okay.
Would the uncategorized card swim lane not be a backlog then? Because you said that the designers don't have a backlog, but I do not really see the difference.
In some way, yeah, I think you are right. In some way, in this case, it's just this uncategorized cards. It's like a really short-term backlog. So the tasks are not staying there for a while, like they can do in the backlog. So backlog is normally used for the like not always like long term planning, but for example, in YouTrack team, we have a prioritized backlog for about a year. Of course, we do change things there, we add new things there, we change the priorities, but it's like the you know, the big plan. And for the design team, it's something that, I mean, they just track every day, and they take the tasks from this, you know, uncategorized cards and move to the specific designer swim lane just right away. So if you need like a really short term backlog, of course you can use this top swim lane, and it might work for you perfectly. Okay, so let's move further. I'm going to talk about product team right now. This is the C-Line and Upcode team. It's a pretty small team, as we can see, and they're working on 2 IDs. Again, they set up this process that they are using right now about a year or even maybe year and a half ago, and they had the following goals. They wanted to flag and track the scope for the upcoming release. What is changed here is that our IDs, they moved to the several releases per year. So this year they had, for example, like 3 major releases, and before that they used to have like 1 major release per year, and then like several minor releases. So this changed, the change of this, you know, release phase has changed the way they plan and track the scope for the upcoming releases. So they wanted, you know, to manage it better. Again, they want to involve all the team members in all the activities and make the process clear and visible for everyone. They wanted to manage the workload on every development stage, because they have different roles that can work on different development stages, and that should be managed somehow as well. And the last thing is that they wanted to visually prioritize their tasks. And this is how their board looks. They call it like Kanban-like board. I will tell you why it's like Kanban. So yeah, they have continuous flow, no sprints, like in classic Kanban. But at the same time, they have separate swim lanes for general and priority tasks. So this is their way to prioritize their work in this continuous flow. They still say that, okay, we've got something like really important and that we want to do at first. And then we have like a general tasks that just go through this continuous flow. The set of columns reflect their development stages. So we can see that they have the phase for analysis, develop, like review, ready for test, merge, and done. And they have BIP limits for all these stages except done. For done, it's like doesn't make sense. And when I asked them how they formed these VIP limits, they said that it's based on their experience and of course on the number of people who can work on a certain stage. So they fine-tuned them for some time and made them work for them and support their process. They have a lot of different workflows that help them to automate their process, and we help them writing them and maintaining them. I just have one example here. So for example, assignee is automatically set when the card is moved to the next stage, like for example, if it's test, then it's automatically assigned to the QA engineer. If it's merge, then it's assigned to someone else, and so on and so forth. They have a backlog of that consists from the prioritized tasks. And what is interesting here is that they have like a separate task for the release. You can see here it says C-line release, and everything that is up to this task will be included to the release, and everything below this issue will go to the next release. Of course, they can tune this queue as they go and they're moving to the release, so they can add something or they can move something to the next release, but they can see this visual border of the things that they need to do to include into this release. So again, I've talked to their team lead about the results that they have after about a year, and he says that yeah, the goal is completed and every team member is involved in the process and is visible and is clear. It's easier to manage the workload on each stage of their development. It's much more convenient to track the work in progress, and it's visible again to everyone. And one tiny thing, but I think really important, it helps them to manage small tasks that might be overlooked for every release otherwise. So this way they don't forget about doing, like regularly small things. So we looked at several different examples, like completely different teams with completely different goals. And I've tried to summarize like what they have in common and what does it mean like for us to be agile and to follow this agile methodology and share this philosophy. So the main thing for us is that we are free to set the rules. But when we set the rules ourselves, I mean the team, we take the responsibility and we agree to follow them. So there is no way to say that, oh, this is not my rule. That's something that I find stupid and I don't want to follow it. So if any member of the team doesn't like something in the process, like they can change it, and that gives them a certain way of, of freedom and responsibility. And when you combine the things, it works really well for the team. Of course, it requires responsibility of each team member. So when you feel this responsibility for things that you are doing, and you feel that you are involved into the process, and your opinion matters, and you can really change something, again, you take the responsibility for the team and for the whole process. Self-management. Self-management is really important for every agile team. I'm pretty sure about that. Because when you need to be agile, there is no one who will set the tasks for you, and who will, micromanage you, and who will say that, okay, this is done right and this is done wrong, in a very, very like daily basis. So self-management is really important here. The next thing is that continuous, like agile process, and every process of any agile team is the continuous process. There is no point, unfortunately, where you can say that, okay, my process is perfect, I'm not going to do anything with that, everything is working fine for me. So if you have certain iterations or continuous flow, at some point you have to stop and do the retrospective and look back at the things that you've tried, and look back at your process. There are always things that work well for you, and there's always something that needs to be changed, to improved. And so you can just, stop doing something and try new things, or improve the things that are working for you. And this is continuous and non-stop process. So be ready for that. And the last thing that we realized, and I'm sure it's very, very important, it doesn't matter which tools you use to support your process, these tools should be customizable enough to fit your process, and not the other way around. These tools should not limit you in any way, and should not dictate to you and your team how you should work. So if you get all these ingredients, I'm sure that you get a successful agile team that performs on the level that you need. Well, thank you. Here is my email address, and you're welcome to contact me if you have any question. I'll be happy to help. And also, you may be interested to check our blog. It's under blog.jetbrains.com/YouTrack, because we have a series of video blogs and just the regular blogs, which is tagged under baking boards. And it shows like more examples of different teams at JetBrains, and they are telling about their way of using the board and their process, and they are sharing all the settings that they use, all the workflows, all the rules, and everything. So we have about 8 episodes in this series, and you may get something new, because I only had like 4 or 5 examples here. And another thing is that we had a series of blog posts about how we do Scrum in YouTrack team. So I've described every single activity that we follow in this series. It's about 8 blog posts, and it's tagged how we Scrum. So if you're interested in the small details of how we do retrospectives, how we do demos, how we do planning, how we create and prioritize the backlog, how we do daily stand-ups, and so on and so forth. So you're welcome to just go there and read. And do we have questions that we want to answer to everyone?
All answered. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you learned something useful, and good luck to your team and yourself on this way to becoming a real agile guru.